What if the reason you're losing strength after 60 has nothing to do with aging itself, and everything to do with what's sitting or not sitting in your refrigerator right now? Starting in your 30s and speeding up dramatically after 60, your body begins quietly shedding muscle tissue every year, a process most people never notice until a jar lid feels heavier or a flight of stairs feels longer than it used to. Doctors call this sarcopenia, and the uncomfortable truth is that almost nobody gets screened for it until it's already changed how they move through the world. Here's what should change how you snack starting today. The single biggest lever against muscle loss after 60 isn't gym membership, and it isn't a supplement aisle. It's what you reach for between meals, quietly every single day, whether or not you're paying attention to it. In this video, I'm walking you through 20 high-protein snacks specifically chosen to rebuild and protect aging muscle, backed by real clinical research, generations of traditional food wisdom, and the biochemistry that connects the two. Stay with me, because number 12 is a snack that hides a complete protein inside something most people think of as a garnish, and number 17 turns an ordinary breakfast bowl into one of the highest protein meals on this entire list, warm, comforting, and something your whole family will end up asking for too. Here's the encouraging part. Your muscle tissue never loses its ability to respond to protein and movement, not at 65, not at 75, not at 85. It simply demands more raw material, delivered more consistently than it used to require in your 30s. Hit subscribe right now, because every week on Healthy Roots, we break down real nutrition science and connect it to the foods your body was actually designed to run on. Let's get into the list. Here are 20 high-protein snacks to rebuild muscle after 60. Number 1, Greek yogurt with walnuts and honey, about 18 to 22 grams of protein. Long before nutrition labels existed, shepherding communities scattered across Greece, Turkey, and the Balkans were straining fresh sheep and goat milk through cloth sacks, watching the liquid whey drip away for hours until what remained was a thick, tangy curd that could survive a hot afternoon without spoiling. They didn't know the word protein. They knew that the strained milk kept working men and women fed through long days in the field in a way that thin milk never could, and that knowledge was passed down through kitchens rather than laboratories for well over 2,000 years. Modern muscle physiology has since caught up to what those shepherds understood through pure trial and error. Because Greek yogurt is strained to remove much of its liquid whey, its protein becomes concentrated into a dense, slow-releasing package that's unusually rich in leucine, the amino acid that functions as a biological trigger for muscle protein synthesis. This matters more after 60 than at any other point in life, because aging muscle develops what researchers call anabolic resistance, meaning it takes a noticeably larger dose of leucine to spark the same building response that a younger body gets from half the amount. A study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that older adults who consumed high leucine dairy protein following resistance exercise experienced meaningfully greater rates of muscle protein synthesis compared with those given an equal amount of lower leucine protein. A single cup of Greek yogurt clears an elevated leucine threshold on its own without needing to be paired with anything else. Add a small handful of walnuts, and you're introducing plant-based omega-3s that help manage the low-grade inflammation known to blunt muscle repair in older adults, while a light drizzle of raw honey adds natural sweetness without leaning on refined sugar or artificial flavoring. Spoon plain, full-fat Greek yogurt into a bowl, scatter over a small handful of chopped walnuts, and finish with a light drizzle of honey. Choose a Greek yogurt with short ingredient list, ideally just milk and live cultures, since many flavor varieties on grocery shelves are diluted with added sugar and stabilizers that quietly cut the actual protein density per serving. This snack requires zero cooking, holds up beautifully in the refrigerator for a week, and can be dressed differently every single day, which is precisely why it tends to become a permanent fixture in someone's routine rather than a passing trend. Think of this as the anchor snack the rest of this list gets measured against. Number 2, cottage cheese with mango, about 22 to 26 grams of protein. Cottage cheese is built almost entirely from casein, the slow-digesting dairy protein that farming communities across Eastern Europe and Central Asia have relied on for generations, precisely because it kept people satisfied for hours rather than minutes. Casein forms a loose curd once it reaches the stomach, releasing amino acids gradually over several hours, which becomes especially valuable overnight, when muscle tissue goes the longest stretch of the day without any incoming protein at all. Research on nighttime casein supplementation in older adults has shown it meaningfully increases overnight muscle protein synthesis without interfering with sleep quality or digestion, directly contradicting decades-old advice to avoid eating anything before bed. Mango contributes something cottage cheese can't offer on its own, a natural digestive enzyme called mangifrin along with strong dose of vitamin C, which the body requires to stabilize a new collagen holding tendons and connective tissue together. Tissue your rebuilding muscle depends on to actually generate force against. Vitamin C also plays a supporting role in iron absorption from meal, which matters because iron status has its own quiet influence on how efficiently oxygen reaches working muscle tissue during daily activity. Spoon a cup of full-fat cottage cheese into a bowl and top it with fresh diced mango, or frozen mango thawed briefly if fresh isn't in season where you live. Some nutrition researchers now describe the hour or two before bed as one of the most overlooked windows in an older adult's entire eating pattern, since so much conversation around protein fixates on daytime meals and quietly ignores the 8 hours the body spends rebuilding while asleep. This is a snack built around the clock, not just a plate, and it deserves a permanent slot in your evening routine rather than an occasional appearance reserved for when you happen to have mango on hand. Number 3, whey protein shake with banana and peanut butter. About 24 to 32 grams of protein. Whey is a liquid byproduct left behind after cheese making, and for most of dairy history, it was treated as runoff, poured out or fed to livestock, while the solid curd received all the attention. It took modern food science to discover that the discarded liquid was, gram for gram, the most anabolically potent protein humans had ever isolated from a food source. Whey digests quickly, raising blood amino acid levels within 20 to 30 minutes of drinking it, and it delivers a higher concentration of leucine than nearly any other common protein source available in a grocery store. That rapid spike matters specifically for older adults contending with anabolic resistance, because it clears the elevated leucine threshold fast rather than trickling in too slowly to trigger a meaningful building response before the amino acids are cleared from the bloodstream. A study published in the Journal of Nutrition found that whey protein supplementation, combined with regular resistance training, produced significantly larger increases in lean muscle mass among adults over 60 compared with resistance training alone, a gap the researchers attributed largely to whey's fast leucine delivery. Blend 1 scoop of whey with a cup of milk, half a frozen banana, and a spoonful of natural peanut butter. In under 2 minutes, you have one of the fastest, most thoroughly researched muscle-building snacks available to anyone with a blender sitting on their counter. For people who've been told to eat more protein but simply don't feel hungry enough to chew through a full meal, this solves a real and common problem. Because liquid protein goes down easily even on low appetite days, and appetite decline is one of the quietest, most underestimated drivers of muscle loss after 60. Choose a whey isolate or concentrate with short ingredient list rather than a heavily sweetened mass-building formula loaded with artificial fillers. Since the plain version dressed up with real fruit does the same job without the unnecessary sugar load riding along with it. Number 4, salmon-stuffed cucumber boats. About 20 to 24 grams of protein. Coastal communities from Norway to the Pacific Northwest built entire food traditions around preserving salmon because it was dense, portable, and could sustain a household through long winters when fresh food was scarce and every calorie mattered. Salmon delivers a complete amino acid profile alongside a strong dose of EPA and DHA, the specific long-chain omega-3 fats that research has repeatedly linked to improved muscle protein synthesis efficiency in older adults, essentially helping the body extract more building value out of every gram of protein consumed alongside it. Cucumber, meanwhile, brings hydration and a light crunch that makes this snack feel closer to a meal than most items on this list, while contributing almost no additional calories to the plate. Research on omega-3 intake in aging populations, including work published in the journal Clinical Nutrition, has associated higher omega-3 status with slower rates of age-related muscle decline and improved response to resistance training over multi-month periods. Slice a cucumber lengthwise, scoop out a small channel down the center with a spoon, and fill with flake canned salmon, mixed with a spoon of Greek yogurt, a squeeze of lemon, and fresh dill. Canned salmon works just as well here as fresh, and is considerably more budget-friendly, which matters because this is a snack meant to appear in your weekly rotation regularly, not as an occasional treat reserved for special effort or a trip to the fish counter. This is portable, refreshing protein built around exactly the fat profile your muscles need to make full use of it, and it travels well to a picnic or a porch table on a warm afternoon. Number 5, 2 soft-boiled eggs with feta. About 16 to 19 grams of protein. The egg has served as humanity's most portable complete protein for thousands of years, carried by Roman legions on long marches, and stored by medieval households through lean winters because it needed no preparation beyond a pot of boiling water and a few patient minutes. It contains all 9 essential amino acids in ratios remarkably close to what human tissue repair actually requires, and the yolk specifically supplies choline, a nutrient increasingly studied for its role in nerve-to-muscle signaling, which becomes more relevant as neuromuscular efficiency naturally declines with age. Crumbling feta over the top doesn't just add flavor, it stacks additional complete protein and calcium onto an already strong foundation. And calcium works alongside protein to help preserve bone density, which tends to decline in lockstep with muscle mass after 60 in a combined process researchers now call osteosarcopenia. Because weakened bone and weakened muscle tend to accelerate each other's decline once one starts slipping. Addressing both together with the same snack matters more than most people realize when they're only thinking in terms of grams of protein. Boil a half dozen eggs on Sunday, peel them, and keep them refrigerated so you have a genuinely effortless snack ready every single day of the week without any additional planning required. If cost is a real consideration, and for a great many people living on a fixed income it absolutely is, eggs remain one of the least expensive complete protein sources on any grocery shelf, making this entry as practical for the wallet as it is for the muscle, a rare combination on a list that's focused on nutrient density. Number 6, turkey and cheddar pinwheels. About 21 to 25 grams of protein. Cured and sliced meats have functioned as portable, shelf-stable protein across nearly every meat-eating culture in recorded history, long before refrigeration made storage simple and predictable. Lean turkey breast delivers one of the most complete, lowest-fat protein profiles found in any deli case, contributing meaningful glycine, proline, and lysine alongside selenium and zinc, two trace minerals that act as required cofactors in the enzymatic steps of muscle repair happening inside your cells. Without adequate zinc specifically, the protein synthesis machinery inside your cells simply cannot operate at full capacity, no matter how much protein you're technically consuming that day, which is why mineral cofactors deserve just as much attention as the protein number itself. Lay thin slices of turkey breast flat. Spread a light layer of cream cheese or hummus across each one. Add a strip of sharp cheddar and a few spinach leaves. Then roll tightly and slice into bite-sized pinwheels. This turns a simple roll-up into something visually appealing enough to serve guests while still functioning as a serious protein delivery vehicle rather than an afterthought snack. Look for turkey breast with short, recognizable ingredient list, since many deli varieties are padded with added sugars and starch fillers that dilute protein density without contributing anything nutritionally in return for the extra sodium. This is protein dressed up just enough to feel like an occasion, without losing any of its function, and it holds up well in a lunchbox or a cooler bag for several hours. Number 7, Skyr with blueberries and flaxseed. About 19 to 24 grams of protein. Skyr is Iceland's answer to the same instinct that produced Greek yogurt, a strained dairy curd developed over 1,000 years ago by Norse settlers who needed dense, storable nutrition to survive brutal winters, with limited access to fresh food for months at a stretch. Skyr is strained even further than standard Greek yogurt, which concentrates its protein content higher still, often delivering more protein per calorie than nearly any other product in the entire dairy case, including many yogurts marketed specifically as high protein. Blueberries contribute anthocyanins, plant compounds studied for their ability to reduce exercise-induced inflammation that can otherwise blunt the muscle repair process in older adults, while a spoon of ground flaxseed adds fiber and plant-based omega-3s that support the same anti-inflammatory environment from a different angle. A study on flavonoid-rich fruit intake in aging populations found associations between higher intake and improved markers of physical function over time, a finding that has shifted how some nutrition researchers talk about fruit, not merely as a source of vitamins, but as an active contributor to how efficiently the body repairs tissue after exertion. Spoon Skyr into a bowl, top with a generous handful of fresh or frozen blueberries, and finish with a sprinkle of ground flaxseed for texture and healthy fat. If Skyr isn't available at your grocery store, a very thick strained Greek yogurt makes a reasonable substitute, though it's worth tracking down the real thing at least once, since the tang and density genuinely differ from anything else on the dairy shelf and are worth experiencing firsthand. Number 8, chicken salad in bell pepper halves. About 22 to 26 grams of protein. Poultry has served as accessible, affordable, complete protein across nearly every farming culture on Earth, since chickens require little land and reward even small households with a steady, dependable source of meat and eggs alike. Chicken breast delivers a dense, low-fat protein load rich in the branched-chain amino acids leucine, isoleucine, and valine, which together make up roughly a third of the amino acid content found in skeletal muscle tissue itself. Part of why poultry has remained a cornerstone of muscle-focused eating across so many different culinary traditions worldwide. Hollowing out a bell pepper and filling it with chicken salad instead of serving it on bread keeps the snack protein forward rather than carbohydrate forward, which matters because appetite naturally shrinks after 60, and every bite needs to work harder nutritionally than it did decades earlier when a larger plate wasn't a problem. Mix shredded chicken with a spoon of Greek yogurt instead of mayonnaise, a little diced celery, and a squeeze of lemon. Then spoon the mixture into halved, seeded bell peppers of any color you prefer. Rotisserie chicken from the grocery store works perfectly here if you want to skip a cooking step entirely. And using yogurt instead of mayonnaise, quietly add a second complete protein source to mix rather than just fat and calories with little added nutritional value. The result is a satisfying, complete protein snack that respects a smaller appetite without shortchanging muscle repair, and the bell pepper itself adds a meaningful dose of vitamin C on top of everything else already working in this snack's favor. Number 9, smoked mackerel pâté on rye crisps. About 18 to 21 grams of protein. Northern European fishing communities have smoked oily fish for centuries, a preservation method born purely out of necessity that happens to concentrate protein while locking in the fish's naturally high omega-3 content for months of storage. Mackerel delivers complete protein alongside one of the highest natural concentrations of EPA and DHA found in any commonly available fish. Fats that research has linked to improved muscle protein synthesis response in older adults, essentially helping the body extract more building value from every gram of protein eaten alongside it in the same meal. Blending smoked mackerel with a base of Greek yogurt instead of butter or cream cheese stacks a second complete protein source into the spread while adding probiotic cultures that support gut health. And a healthier gut has been associated with better nutrient absorption overall, which matters more with age as digestive efficiency naturally declines and fewer nutrients make it through unabsorbed. Flake smoked mackerel into a bowl, mash it with a spoon of Greek yogurt, a squeeze of lemon, and a pinch of black pepper, then spread it generously over whole grain rye crisps for a satisfying crunch. Choose mackerel with minimal added ingredients beyond salt and smoke, since some varieties are packed in heavily processed oils that dilute the quality of fat you're adding to an otherwise excellent snack, undercutting much of its benefit. This is a pâté fishing villages would recognize instantly, simply dressed for a modern countertop and a quicker afternoon. Number 10, cottage cheese with roasted cherry tomatoes. About 21 to 25 grams of protein. We return to cottage cheese because its role on this list deserves a second look from a different angle entirely, one built around savory flavor rather than fruit. Paired with roasted cherry tomatoes instead of fruit, the profile shifts toward lycopene, a plant compound studied for its antioxidant activity, alongside potassium, a mineral that plays a direct role in proper muscle contraction and helps counterbalance sodium intake elsewhere in the day's meals. Roasting concentrates the tomatoes' natural sugars and intensifies their flavor, turning what could be a plain snack into something genuinely craveable rather than merely functional. Research connecting potassium intake to muscle function in older adults has found that adequate levels support better neuromuscular signaling, meaning the electrical communication between nerve and muscle fiber that determines how efficiently a contraction actually happens once the signal arrives. Toss a handful of cherry tomatoes with olive oil, salt, and a pinch of oregano. Roast at 400 degrees for 15 minutes until blistered and slightly caramelized. Then spoon them warm over a cup of cottage cheese. This can be prepared in a large batch at the start of the week and reheated briefly, or eaten cold straight from the refrigerator if you prefer it that way. There's no real excuse for cottage cheese to disappear from your rotation just because you've grown tired of the same fruit pairing, since a savory version like this one keeps the snack feeling fresh indefinitely and works just as well at lunch as it does mid-afternoon. Number 11, cottage cheese and pineapple bowl. About 20 to 24 grams of protein. Returning to cottage cheese a third time might seem repetitive, but that repetition is precisely the point, since consistency is what actually builds muscle over months and years rather than novelty for its own sake. Pineapple introduces bromelain, a proteolytic enzyme studied for its role in reducing exercise-related muscle soreness and inflammation, working alongside the slow-digesting casein in cottage cheese to create a pairing that supports both digestion and recovery simultaneously through two different mechanisms. Fresh pineapple chunks stirred into a bowl of cottage cheese in the evening feed muscle repair through exactly the hours your body needs it most, helping you recover faster from whatever activity filled your day, whether that was a structured workout or simply an active afternoon in the garden pulling weeds. A study examining bromelain supplementation around exercise found reduced markers of inflammation and perceived muscle soreness in participants compared with control group, a finding that has made pineapple something serious recovery-focused eaters keep on hand deliberately rather than by accident of what happened to be in the fruit bowl. Dice fresh pineapple, or use canned pineapple packed in juice rather than syrup, and stir it directly into a cup of full-fat cottage cheese right before eating, so the fruit stays crisp. This is a snack built for the exact hours your body spends quietly rebuilding while you sleep, and it belongs in your evening rotation as reliably as brushing your teeth, not as an occasional indulgence. Number 12, edamame with sesame and sea salt. about 17 to 19 grams of protein. Steamed young soybeans have been a staple snack across East Asia for centuries, valued long before soy protein was ever studied in a laboratory, simply because it was filling, affordable, and grew reliably season after season regardless of weather. Edamame is one of the rare plant foods that qualifies as a genuinely complete protein, containing all 9 essential amino acids in meaningful amounts, setting it apart from most other plant-based snacks that fall noticeably short on 1 or 2 of them, usually leucine or methionine. Research comparing plant and animal protein sources in older adults has found that soy protein, eaten in sufficient quantity, can support muscle protein synthesis at rates comparable to animal-based protein, directly challenging the outdated assumption that only meat and dairy can effectively rebuild muscle after 60. Edamame also delivers a substantial fiber load that slows digestion and helps stabilize blood sugar, increasingly relevant to muscle health with age, since poorly controlled blood sugar has been linked to accelerated muscle loss in several observational studies tracking older adults over multiple years. Steam a cup of edamame pods, toss them with a light drizzle of sesame oil and flaky sea salt, and you have a snack that proves plant protein has always belonged in serious conversations about aging muscle, not as a substitute for animal protein, but as a legitimate contender in its own right. Frozen edamame in the shell is inexpensive, keeps for months in the freezer, and steams about 5 minutes, making it one of the lowest effort, longest shelf life entries on this entire list, ready whenever the craving hits. Number 13, shrimp and avocado salsa cups. About 19 to 23 grams of protein. Coastal harvesting of shellfish stretches back to some of the earliest recorded human diets, and shrimp in particular has remained a dietary staple across cultures from the Gulf Coast to Southeast Asia because it cooks quickly, carries almost no fat, and packs an unusually large amount of protein for its size relative to other seafood. A serving of shrimp delivers a complete amino acid profile alongside a notable dose of selenium and vitamin B12, a nutrient that becomes genuinely harder to absorb from food with age due to naturally declining stomach acid production, and one that's essential for nerve function, including the specific nerves that signal muscle contraction from brain to fiber. Inadequate B12 status in older adults has been associated with reduced muscle function independent of overall protein intake, which makes shrimp a quietly strategic choice on this list, not just for its protein content, but for a nutrient many people over 60 are running low on without ever realizing it until symptoms appear. Steam or boil shrimp until just pink, chop it, and fold it into a quick salsa of diced avocado, tomato, red onion, lime juice, and cilantro. Then spoon the mixture into small lettuce or endive cups for an easy handheld bite. Pre-cooked frozen shrimp works just as well as fresh here and thaws in about 10 minutes under cold running water, making this one of the fastest snacks on the entire list. From freezer to plate in under 15 minutes, with almost no cleanup afterward. Number 14, egg muffin bites with spinach and gouda. About 16 to 20 grams of protein. This entry is a modern mashup, but it's built on 2 of the oldest protein foods in human history, egg and cultured dairy, combined here into a single portable, oven-baked format that travels well. Whisking cottage cheese or shredded gouda into beaten eggs before baking does more than add flavor. It adds moisture and a second, slower-digesting protein source, meaning these bites deliver both a fast initial amino acid release in the egg and more gradual, sustained release afterward, covering a wider window of muscle protein synthesis from a single small snack. Studies examining protein timing in older adults have found that spreading protein intake more evenly across the day, rather than concentrating most of the dinner as many people naturally do, produces better muscle maintenance outcomes than eating the same total amount in one large sitting later in the evening. Whisk eggs with a handful of chopped spinach, a little shredded gouda, and a pinch of nutmeg. Pour into a greased muffin tin and bake at 350 degrees for about 18 minutes until set and lightly golden on top. Make a full batch on Sunday and you have grab-and-go muscle-building bites for the entire week with no reheating required. And they hold up perfectly well eaten cold straight from the refrigerator, which makes them an especially good option for the car, a walk, or anywhere you want real protein, without needing to keep anything chilled with an ice pack. Number 15, sardines with mustard on whole grain toast points. About 20 to 23 grams of protein. Small oily fish have been a staple of coastal Mediterranean and Scandinavian diets for centuries, eaten whole, bones and all, as ordinary daily nutrition rather than any kind of delicacy reserved for special occasions. That detail matters, because the soft, edible bones in canned sardines deliver a meaningful dose of calcium directly, working alongside the fish's complete protein to support both muscle tissue and the skeletal frame that muscle relies on for leverage and control movement. Sardines rank among the most concentrated dietary sources of omega-3 fatty acids available anywhere, and research on omega, 3 intake in aging populations has repeatedly linked higher levels to slower rates of age-related muscle loss over multi-year observation periods. Mash a tin of sardines with a little Dijon mustard and a squeeze of lemon. Then spread the mixture over small toasted points of whole grain bread cut into bite-sized triangles. This is a kind of unglamorous snack that serious nutrition-minded people quietly rely on precisely because it delivers protein, calcium, and omega-3s together in a format requiring no cooking and no refrigeration until the tin is open for the first time. Sardines packed in olive oil or water are the better choice over those packed in heavily processed vegetable oils, both for flavor and for the overall quality of fat you're adding to an already excellent snack that doesn't need much dressing up to begin with. Number 16, roasted turkey and hummus lettuce wraps. About 21 to 24 grams of protein. There's nothing complicated about this entry, and that's exactly the point of including it here. Roasting a whole turkey or chicken has been the centerpiece of family meals across cultures for generations, not because it was fashionable, but because it reliably produced enough protein to feed a household for days afterward without any additional cooking. Keeping pre-sliced roasted turkey breasts on hand in the refrigerator turns leftover Sunday dinner into a week's worth of instant complete protein requiring zero preparation on a busy weekday. Lean poultry delivers a dense leucine load in a relatively small serving, which matters specifically for clearing the elevated anabolic threshold that older muscle requires before it will actually begin building new tissue in response. A study examining protein distribution habits in adults over 65 found that simply having a convenient, ready-to-eat protein source available significantly increased the odds that people actually met their daily protein targets, compared with relying on protein that required preparation at the moment of eating it. In other words, having the food ready in the refrigerator did more for real-world protein intake than knowing which foods were technically the healthiest choice on paper. Layer sliced turkey breast with a spread of hummus, shredded carrot, and cucumber inside a large lettuce leaf. Then roll it tightly like a wrap and slice in half. Slice or shred a whole roasted turkey the day you cook it, portion it into small containers, and you've turned one cooking session into 5 or 6 ready-made snacks without any additional effort whatsoever for the rest of the week. Number 17, protein oatmeal with milk, whey, and cinnamon apples. About 26 to 32 grams of protein. Oats have fueled working populations across Scotland, Scandinavia, and the American frontier for centuries, valued as a slow-burning, affordable staple that kept laborers fed through long, physically demanding days in cold climates. On its own, oatmeal is fairly low in protein relative to its calorie load, but cooking in whole milk instead of water, then stirring in a scoop of whey protein powder, once it's off the heat, transforms it into one of the highest protein breakfasts on this entire list, while keeping the warm, comforting format that makes an easy daily habit rather than a chore to force yourself through. The combination also delivers beta-glucan fiber from the oats, studied for its role in supporting stable blood sugar and healthy cholesterol levels, both of which influence how efficiently nutrients actually reach working muscle tissue through a well-functioning vascular system. Cook rolled oats in whole milk. Remove from heat. Stir in a scoop of vanilla whey protein, and top with warm cinnamon sautéed apple slices and a few chopped pecans for crunch and healthy fat. This single bowl delivers more usable protein than a full chicken breast, wrapped in the most comforting format on the entire list, and it's also one of the easiest entries to prepare ahead in bulk, so a large batch can be portioned into the refrigerator and reheated with a splash of milk each morning, turning a genuinely high-effort sounding breakfast into something that takes about 90 seconds on a weekday morning. Number 18, tofu satay skewers with peanut sauce. About 18 to 23 grams of protein. Tofu has served as a staple protein across East Asian cultures for well over 1,000 years, developed as a method for transforming soybeans into a dense, versatile, complete protein food long before the concept of plant-based protein had a name anywhere in the West. Firm tofu delivers all 9 essential amino acids, and like edamame, it has been shown in research comparing plant and animal protein sources to support muscle protein synthesis effectively when eaten in adequate portions, particularly when paired with resistance activity of some kind. Tofu also contains isoflavones, plant compounds studied for a possible supportive role in bone density among aging populations, which matters again because muscle and bone health tend to decline together rather than separately, reinforcing each other in either direction. Press cube firm tofu for 15 minutes to remove excess water. Thread it onto skewers. Brush lightly with soy sauce and a touch of sesame oil, then grill or pan-sear until golden on each side and slightly crisp at the edges. Serve with simple peanut sauce made from natural peanut butter, soy sauce, lime juice, and a splash of warm water to thin it out to a dippable consistency. That pressing step makes a noticeable difference in texture, letting the tofu develop a satisfying sear rather than turning soggy in the pan. This is a snack that Chinese and Southeast Asian households have relied on for generations, and one that deserves a permanent place in any serious protein strategy after 60, plant-based or not, alongside the dairy and meat entries on this list. Number 19, high-protein chia, pudding with almond butter, about 19 to 25 grams of protein. Chia seeds were a staple crop of ancient Mesoamerican civilizations, prized by Aztec and Mayan cultures as a compact, energy-dense food that sustained runners and warriors across long distances on minimal volume, sometimes carried in small pouches during multi-day journeys. Chia seeds themselves contribute a modest amount of plant protein, alongside a substantial dose of plant-based omega-3 fatty acids in the form of alpha-linolenic acid, which the body partially converts into the same anti-inflammatory compounds found in fish. Compounds increasingly studied for their role in supporting the anti-inflammatory environment that allows muscle repair to proceed efficiently rather than being slowed by low-grade chronic inflammation. The real protein power in this snack, though, comes from folding the soaked chia into Greek yogurt, which supplies the leucine-rich dairy protein this list keeps returning to for good, well-established reason. Research on combining plant and dairy protein sources has suggested this kind of pairing can support more complete amino acid delivery than either food eaten entirely on its own. Soak chia seeds in milk overnight until they form a thick gel, then fold in Greek yogurt and a spoonful of natural almond butter the next morning before eating. Prepare several jars at once at the start of the week, since the pudding holds well for 4 or 5 days refrigerated, giving you a rotating stock of ready-made protein without touching the stove more than once all week, freeing up your mornings entirely. Number 20, low-sugar protein bar, about 18 to 25 grams of protein. We end with the one entry on this list that requires you to actually read a label carefully, because the protein bar industry has flooded grocery shelves with products that are, nutritionally speaking, candy bars wearing gym clothes and marketed accordingly. A well-formulated bar built primarily around whey, casein, or soy protein isolate, with minimal added sugar and a short, recognizable ingredient list, is a genuinely useful tool for the moments when a homemade snack simply isn't practical, a car ride, a waiting room, a long errand day that runs longer than planned, and leaves no time to prepare anything fresh. The key is reading the ingredient list itself every single time, rather than trusting the marketing claims printed across the front of the wrapper. You want a complete protein source listed first, not a vague protein-flavored filler blend buried further down the list. And you want total sugar sitting in the single digits per serving. Research on protein supplementation in older adults has consistently shown that convenience matters nearly as much as composition, because the best protein source in the world does no good sitting unopened in a pantry drawer for weeks at a time. Flip the bar over before you buy it, and give the sugar line the same scrutiny you'd give the protein number. Because a bar carrying 20 grams of protein alongside 20 grams of added sugar isn't the win the front label wants you to believe it is. It isn't the most exciting entry on this list. It's the most reliable one, and reliability is exactly what a snacking strategy needs to survive real life, busy weeks, and the days when nothing goes according to plan. And there it is, 20 snacks that prove rebuilding muscle after 60 was never about chasing some exotic new compound science just discovered in a lab somewhere. It was about paying close attention to what dense, complete, minimally processed protein does for a body at any age, the same way fishing villages, dairy farmers, and grain cultures across the world understood instinctively long before anyone could name a single amino acid or measure a gram of leucine. Deliver fast-acting protein with whey shakes, eggs, and shrimp. Deliver slow, sustained protein overnight with cottage cheese, Skyr, and Greek yogurt. Cover plant-based ground with edamame, tofu, and chia. Layer in the minerals and fats your muscle-building enzymes actually require with walnuts, salmon, and sardines. And close the gap on busy days with a quality bar in your bag, rather than skipping protein altogether and telling yourself you'll make it up tomorrow. None of this works in complete isolation from the rest of your day, and it's worth saying plainly, these snacks are the raw material, but muscle tissue responds most powerfully when that material shows up alongside some form of resistance activity. Even something as modest as carrying groceries up a flight of stairs, gardening with intention, or a few sets of simple bodyweight movements at home in the living room. Protein without any mechanical signal to use, it still gets absorbed and still supports basic tissue maintenance. But the two together are where the real rebuilding actually happens, day after day, month after month. You don't need a gym membership or a personal trainer to provide that signal. You need consistency, and you need the building material already on hand when your body is ready to use it, which is exactly what this list of 20 snacks is designed to give you day after day, without requiring you to think too hard about any of it once the routine is in place. There's a reason this list leans so heavily on foods that predate modern nutrition science by centuries. Foods that fishing villages, dairy farmers, and grain cultures relied on long before anyone could name a single amino acid or run a clinical trial. Those cultures weren't guessing. They were watching generation after generation. What kept their people strong, mobile, and capable of full days' labor well into old age? And they passed that knowledge down to the kitchen rather than through a textbook or a research journal. Modern research has simply given us a vocabulary to finally explain what they already knew to be true through observation alone. This isn't a supplement protocol. It's a snacking strategy available to anyone at any grocery store starting today, with foods you likely already recognize. Smash that like button if this changed how you look at what's currently sitting in your refrigerator right now. Drop a comment below and tell me which snack surprised you the most. Are you Team Edamame, Team Sardines, or Team Protein Oatmeal? I read every single comment, and I genuinely want to know which one you're going to try first. And if you haven't subscribed to Healthy Roots yet, click that button now, because we're building a community that takes real nutrition seriously, evidence-based, generational, and deeply connected to how the body actually rebuilds itself over time. Staying strong after 60 was never about doing more. It's about eating smarter one snack at a time.